Hello, all, and welcome to the Fantasy and Sci-Fi Fanatics podcast. I am your host, Daniel Coolbaugh. Today, I have me a very special guest, Maurice Africh III. How are you doing today, Maurice?
I'm great.
Uh, Thank you so much for coming on today. Everybody knows, right? Like, tech hates me, so Maurice, thank you for being patient. It's always tech I pay for too. It's like your internet you pay for. It's like wild. If it's free stuff,
Right.
it's kind of whatever. But I appreciate you coming on today.
Oh yeah.
I checked your book out a while back, so I bought that one. I saw it. I think I followed you, and then I was like, I just bought it in the same day. I think I got through
Awesome.
like two sentences of the blurb. I just bought it, and then I went back later and read it. I was like, oh, that was a good purchase by me. Like that's definitely my thing. But for me, I always talk about with people on here. I'm always like 60% cover for me, just as like I wanted to be illustrator back in the day. I went to
Oh
school
really?
for it. Yeah, then I switched. So art to me is like I love it. So if it speaks to me, that's like catches me, and then I flip it over. I'm not a review guy. I'm a blurb guy. So if it
That's
sounds
cool.
interesting to me, yeah, like I cover blurb, I'm done. If someone else tells me they've read it, even better. But for me, it's like what hooked me right away. So I can't wait, to talk to you today about, your book, your writing, and
Yeah. I'm so
kind of
glad that
dive
I
into it.
invested in a cover artist. Like,
Yeah. I know that feeling. It's kind of ironic. I was like, oh, I'm gonna get my first novella redone, and then I signed somebody, and then not 15 minutes later, I've been waiting months for feedback. Not 15 minutes later, my two of my friends like respond with feedback for alpha readers and beta readers. They're like, oh,
oh
I love this
no.
cover. I'm like, what? They're like, oh no, it fits the story perfectly. They're like, I would just tweak like one or two things, and I'm like, well, I'm not going to spend $800 to redo it. Like,
Right, right.
I
Yeah.
got a hold of my cover artist. I'm like, can I switch it to my book one instead? Because then they were like, I showed them like the second and third ones. They're like, oh yeah, I would just tweak these things. And I was like, well, that's a lot cheaper than what I was thinking. But I agree. Like, I'm so excited to see what Tom's going to do for my actual series. But I totally agree. But I love your cover. I thought it was
Thank
like
you.
absolutely superb. So it drew me in
Thanks.
right off the bat. I think I found you on Instagram first, actually. So that
Yeah.
like I was like scrolling. I was like, I'm everywhere. Like I'm looking under nooks and crannies, for new authors, books, games, comics and stuff. And I was like, how do I not know this person? So I like went right to your site right off the bat. So and then Amazon or whatever. So it
That's
definitely
awesome.
works. So that's awesome. But Maurice, we'll start right in. What has your writing journey been like up until this point?
So if I had to talk about my writing journey and kind of break it, like if it one word, 3 words, let's do 3 words.
I
I
like
would
three.
say it's been long, it's been turbulent, and it's
Oh,
been
good one.
consistent. Uh, so like I started writing, I've been writing novels for like 12 years,
Oh, wow.
um, since I was in college. And this is actually the fifth book I've written. So like I have a
Oh,
lot of
awesome.
books that are just they're in folders on my computer.
Good.
I've seriously queried two of them to agents,
Oh, well.
including this one. Um, and I didn't get any feedback. Got a lot of rejection. Uh,
Oh, well.
and then was like, I think I want to do it. I want to just open, and you can't always wait for somebody to open the door for you. So I was
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
I'm just going to open the door myself. I'm building my own door. And
Yeah.
so I just ran with it, but I wanted it to be like as if I was traditionally published. So I
Yep.
kind of treated it like that. I hired a developmental editor, then I hired a line editor, I hired the cover artist like we talked about. I launched it as if like, this has a real marketing budget and I have a real my wife is she's an executive marketer.
Oh, wow.
She's an expert in marketing. So like big companies pay her lots of money to run their marketing for her. So I had her help, obviously, and she put a lot of thought and energy into like what my 6 month marketing plan would be surrounding the launch. So we're kind of actually coming to the end of that, which is interesting. It's like
Awesome.
I've had to develop new plans for the next bit, but
Yeah.
writing itself is for me a lot of fun, obviously, but also a lot of like grind. You just get in, you got to get in and
Yeah.
write. Like that's it. You got to be consistent and you got to run. But this book, because I queried it first, it went through 6 drafts before I sent it off
Oh
to
wow.
agents. And then I got an R&R, which is a request and no, it's a resubmit. Yeah, so it's what is it called? Something in resubmit, basically. So I sent it to them. She's like, "Oh, I would like it if you changed these bits and you made it 50,000 words shorter." So I was like, "Okay, I'm on it." So I did that. I like chopped that thing up, sent it back to her, and then she ghosted me.
Oh wow.
So that was the last. Like I was like, I'm not sending this to another agent. Not this book, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, so then once I started working with my own editor, I went through like 6 more drafts. So this book went through 12 drafts. So it's been a long, long journey. It's been a little turbulent, but you know, just like anything, you just got to be consistent. And so like I've pumped it out. We're here. It's
Yeah,
happened.
yeah.
The book's out there in the world, you know?
That's awesome. Now my whole audience is gonna be like, look at Dan over there on his 5th draft, and poor Maurice has 12. Dan should shut up.
Fifth
It's only
draft,
a
man.
novella.
That's more than some people. I've seen people that are like, nah, I just published my first draft. And I'm like, that's crazy. That's
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
wild. All these people that are out here publishing like 12 books a year. I'm like, I don't know. You know, I'll benefit of the doubt. But if you're not using AI or you're just not editing, I mean, maybe I could see
Yeah.
it. But whoo.
I think I could do if I was writing full time. Like I mean, I write pretty quick. Like my job just like has like there's just so many demands. It just like ruined my brain this year. I had to figure out how to get this much stuff with this little like less money for all my kids. So we did some stuff, man. It was like I've never worked harder for children in my entire life, and I have a kid, man. So, but like, yeah, it's wild. Like I'm like I could probably do. My friend like literally said, he goes, "Let's crunch the numbers." Like, okay, and he goes, "You could probably do 6 a year, like with editing, like 4 to 5 drafts, like per." You know, and granted, I'm like you. I got like quite a bit, you know, that I could like probably wrap up or you know do a couple more drafts, whatever, you know. I got like
Hmm.
the bones and stuff, but dude,
Right,
people
right.
that do 12 with like Lindsay Baroker is one of those people where she is just like, I think she's at a point. I've talked to a few people where you know like they know her, they've read her stuff, and they're like it's wild. They're like she's like published so many books that like her 3rd draft, if she does do a 3rd draft, is like maybe my 15th draft, you know,
Wow.
and I talked to quite a few authors, right, who are on the opposite side of the spectrum as us, right, where that's at one point they just, you know, you just know where you're going more, but
Yeah.
I am definitely
Yeah.
not there, Maurice.
Well,
I
it's a
mean, like I
learning
told you,
process, you know.
yeah,
You
yeah,
don't.
yeah, totally,
You're constantly testing yourself. Like when you're an
yep,
author, you don't know how people are going to feel about the choices you've made until they start reading
yep,
it. So it's like,
yep,
boom, they start reading it. Oh, they like that. Okay, now I can like submit that as like part of my style and part of my narrative
yep,
flow, you know. But
yep.
you don't really. The first book, especially, I'm never going to do 12 drafts again. I'll tell you that right now. Never going to do 12 drafts again. But I mean, I could see 5, 4, 6,
Yeah,
maybe, you know, like moving
yeah, yeah.
forward.
Yeah, that's interesting. I always find it interesting with different people's processes. Like Michael R. Fletcher, he actually has gone and he'll go back and he'll write out like physically his whole first draft. Like he'll do notes and then he'll
Like pen and
physically write it.
paper?
Yep, and then it works better for him that way, and then he'll go and then he'll start typing. He'll type it up, fix some stuff, and he has like a whole process. But it's like it's wild, like how thick his books are and how many. Like everybody always talks about Brandon Sanderson, but I'm like Mike to me is like the Brandon Sanderson of like indie. But it's like it's interesting to see everybody's like different processes. I think that's my hardest thing right now. Is like I'm still figuring out my processes. I'm glad I got a developmental editor. And like I'm like still going through her notes. I'm just like, holy crap! Like talk about learning. It was like you know like its own like writing course in itself. Just you know her
Yes.
notes.
When
It
you
was like
work with
wild.
somebody who knows the ins and outs of storytelling from a scientific
Yep.
perspective, it changes how you think about story. Like I
Yeah.
didn't approach it like that. I was like, I'm a writer, you know, I pantsed my whole plot, you know? But then I worked with my developmental editor and she's like, no, this is what audience is like. This is how you catch a rhythm. This is how you
Yep.
not psychologically manipulate the reader, but like almost, you know, like you play with
Basically,
emotion.
yeah.
Yeah, there's a
Yep.
bit of that, you know, and
Yep.
you don't know that until you work with a developmental editor. That's why I tell everybody you need to hire a developmental editor that knows what they're doing. that understands the science of storytelling, because it's different. And then she was like, you need to hire a line editor who is an expert in the Chicago style, Chicago manual. And I was like, okay. But and it's a lot of money. It's a lot of money, but if you invest in yourself, you invest in your book, it shows. People can tell.
Yeah, that's where I'm like, do I want to like I got Tom Edwards doing my first book cover for my actual series for Urban Fantasy. I'm like, do I want to spend it redoing my novella? And then like people were like, oh, you could just fix X, Y, and Z. So it's a little easier. But yeah, I'm like trying to think. I'm like, well, I could just use that now for editing costs or something like that. But I totally agree. All right. So for those people in the audience that are not familiar with your book, what genre or genres do you currently write in and why?
So, Cello's Gate, which is the Sky Pirates of Imperia, that one is science fantasy. So it's a futuristic world, but it's a fantasy novel set in a futuristic world. So I very much ride that line of like, there's a lot of magic, but there's also a lot of technology. I also think for me, I wanted to write. I was inspired by stuff like, which we'll talk about that in a second too, I know. But I was inspired by like Final Fantasy and Firefly and all this media that is like, I don't know, they talk more normal, they talk a little bit more like us. There isn't that like medieval slang. I liked that. But I also wanted, I don't know, just like it felt more fresh to me. And I think science fantasy is having a bit of a renaissance right now.
Yeah. Yep.
I feel like I'm seeing a lot of it with like Red Rising made, that's a huge book in like the science fantasy realm. Empire of Silence, the Sun Eater series, that's another one that's like a huge science fantasy. But then you've got like Dune, Star Wars. These are all classic like science fantasy stories, and I think people want them. People love them, and it's a departure from the Lord of the Rings style. It's like it's hard sci-fi meets Lord of the Rings, and I think that's just super cool. But I also dabble in. I have so many half-written books, so I have like an epic fantasy series, and I have a near future. I used to write a lot of near future literary, so speculative fiction, kind of like Black Mirror-esque.
That's awesome.
I started writing a lit RPG after I read Dungeon Crawler Carl, because I was like, that's cool.
I'm on that one right now.
Oh man, those audiobooks are incredible.
Yeah.
And I write poetry. So
that's awesome.
Yeah. So that's what I write. What do you write?
Urban fantasy. I got
cool.
A bunch of dark fantasies just like sitting around. I got 2 different like dark fantasy worlds.
Like grimdark?
I'd say one of them is, and then another one is more like, I don't know, I guess it's more like just like typical fantasy. I don't know. It's like Star Wars, but in a fantasy world, if that makes sense. Like there's just no sci-fi. But then 5,000 years later, I add the technology. Like roughly I think it's 7,000 years now. I waited it, but like I add the technology, and then it's like basically like Warhammer.
Sweet. Yeah. It's like Arcane.
Yeah, basically, yeah. So it'll like go from a fantasy like Age of Sigmar and then turn into like Warhammer 40K later.
That's cool.
I've always loved where Sanderson does that with like Alloy of Law and stuff, where it's like in the future, but it's still in the Mistborn universe. So I thought, I could easily do that, and I love Warhammer 40K and stuff like that. The mix of, I'm a huge Star Wars fan, so science fiction and fantasy, like just mix it together. I'm like, those are the best of what I love. So, but yeah, I got like a fantasy heist novel.
Cool.
Yeah, that is like definitely going through rewrites and stuff. Switch the setting, but yeah, I'm the same. I like a lot of different things. Urban fantasy is what I'm going to release first because it's so hard for me to write, but I love reading it. So I actually decided to be stupid. I was like, well, I feel like I'm better at writing fantasy. So I was like, oh, I'm going to write urban fantasy first. And
just challenge yourself right off the bat.
Just stupid, guys. But now when I go back to fantasy, though, especially after work, Sarah Torn was developmental editing for me for my first novella. Just like I was in a pinch and she helped me out a lot. And then I have Logan D. Irons, H.L. Tinsley were my 2 alpha readers. Then I got a set of like really good like beta readers coming up, like 5 or 6. But I am excited though because it's I learned all these lessons for urban fantasy. And then once I go back and write just actual, like fantasy, it's just so much easier for me.
Yeah.
So yeah, I feel like, it'll definitely work. It's kind of like Will White's Cradle, right? Where, Lennon or whatever, like the main character, he's got like the heavenly wheel and he like, tries to grind himself harder than anybody. So that's kind of was my inspiration to go into urban fantasy first.
Work twice as hard. Make it hard on yourself.
Like, that was dumb, dude. Like, I don't know if I'd recommend it, guys, but
Cradle's great.
Awesome.
I love Cradle.
Yeah,
awesome.
Yeah. I love Cradle. It's so funny. I've talked about this story the last couple of weeks because I just was like on a seminar and stuff, and we were talking about Pierce Brown. But I met Pierce Brown when Red Rising first came out. I met Brandon Sanderson,
Really?
Brian McCullen. Kevin Hearn put on this huge thing at the Poison Pen. Michael J. Sullivan was there. I have so many funny stories.
Wow.
But like, Pierce Brown. I go, here's Kevin, like the main person, and then I go, and then there's like Patrick, and then I met Brandon. Brandon was so tired, you could tell. And I heard a story a while back of
how can he not be tired? He writes,
dude.
He's all he does is write and sign books.
Way of Kings had came out like maybe 6-7 weeks before this. And like, but he had just gotten done with the Wheel of Time, so it's like,
oh, right. So he was like, yeah,
it was like nuts, dude. So he hadn't like quite, really taken off yet. But yeah, it was wild. And I go to Pierce Brown, and I was like, dude, this sounds awesome. Like Romans in space, essentially, and on Mars. And he goes, I think I'll sell a few, hopefully. And I don't know why that popped into my head the other day, like 2 weeks ago, and I keep talking about it. I laugh so hard because I'm like, yeah, he kind of sold a few, but it's so funny to see somebody like that. Yeah. And like, even Michael J. Sullivan was like book 3. Oh, I don't know why I don't have it over here. I think I have it upstairs. It's like, Age of Legends hadn't even come out yet. So, but it's just like wild to see like where he's
wild, man. Michael J. Sullivan writes his whole series before he publishes even the first book. That's I couldn't imagine waiting that long. Like I would, that would be so. I'd be like, I hope they love it because I'm already invested. That's.
Yep.
But I imagine you get like a better story out of it because you know exactly where you're going.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. I just think like when I met him, this was like 10 years ago, right? Like, well, now I guess it's 10 years ago exactly. I just think like it's wild to see where like people like Brian was like he had just come out with like book 1, the Gunpowder Mage series, and it's just crazy to see. Yeah, like even Patrick was just kind of sitting in the corner and like, he was like, hey, how's it going? I'm like, hey, good, how about you? I was like, oh, this book In the Name of the Wind sounds cool. And just to like see where people just like shot up. It was just like
crazy.
Wild. Yeah. And then there were people too, like the Django Wexler was there. I like totally forgot like 1,000 Names or whatever was the book I got signed. It was like how much stuff, that he's done since then. It's just like, it's wild to think of how many people were there. And like, I was there all day. Like there were indie and traditional. It was so cool. Cause like Kevin, that's just Kevin. Like he does both. And he was like awesome. He was like kind of like the king sitting in front, and he was just like so epically cool. But yeah, it's interesting for me to see where people were and then where they are now. And there were some other people there too. That's just like, it's wild to see how many books were sold or how many books these people have written, since then. And just to kind of see where they've gone. It was really, really cool. That's one reason why I started doing this podcast. Cause I was like, oh, I kind of want to check in with people at different parts of their career. So
you never know. You never know, like what's.
Yeah, some of them, right? Like Pierce will be like, I don't know, I might sell a few. Like, it was really crazy.
Yeah, maybe I'll sell a few. We'll see. I'll talk to you again in 5 years, and we'll see how I did.
Yeah. That's very fair. Well, next we'll start with my third questionnaire, which is always my favorite one. So, what is your book Cello's Gate about, and how'd you come up with this idea?
So, Cello's Gate is. Let me just give you the like elevator pitch, right?
Oh, perfect.
So Cello's Gate is about a crew of sky pirates who are hired by an ancient immortal to locate and steal a mythological stone from an uncharted, dangerous island protected by a mysterious guardian. That's a mouthful, but it's basically like Firefly meets Indiana Jones meets Final Fantasy. Like that's it. It's like you have this crew of sky pirates who there's a lot of banter. There's a lot of jokes, but then they're on this like Indiana Jones-esque adventure. And then Final Fantasy, there's tech, there's magic. They have a lot of fight scenes. It's a lot of action. It's super action packed, very action and adventure. So yeah, that's what the book's about.
Well, I love that. I was listening to somebody that had on Instagram or whatever that had read your book, and they were basically like they likened it to like Guardians of the Galaxy meets Indiana Jones. I was
Yes.
like,
Yeah.
sold. Like so sold right there. Like, I was like, nothing else had to be said, Maurice. I was like, I am there. So I thought that was really awesome.
That's dope.
But I love that elevator pitch though. I saw you had written that somewhere. I don't know if it was your website or Instagram or what. But I was
Who
like,
knows?
oh, I was like, that's really good.
Thanks, man. Thanks.
So, yeah, I just think that's really cool. But where'd you come up with this idea from?
So this idea, have you ever played Final Fantasy? Have you played any of the games? Okay, so I
didn't
playing.
play 10, unfortunately. I played all the ones up till 10.
Oh, okay, I love 10, but 9 is my favorite. 9 is my favorite.
It's awesome.
My second favorite is this one, which is Final Fantasy Tactics. Do you know about that one?
Oh yeah. I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's super fun. It's like a strategy-based, turn-based game.
Yeah.
I was in the middle of playing this, and I saw there in that story there are these stones that are basically possessed by demons, and when these cardinals in this church get a hold of these stones, the demon takes over, and they like gain access to their power. And I was like, that's cool. That's a cool idea. And then it just kind of evolved from there. The first thing I did was I was like, well, if I'm going to do a story like this, I'm a found family fanatic. I need to build the crew. So the first thing I did was I built the crew, and then I drew on a piece of paper next to the crew. I did all of their names and then their titles. So like their like job title, their like whatever their class is. And then to the left of that, I drew, it was 9 stones at the time. I drew 9 circles and I colored them all in color pencil. And then I put that on my wall, and it was just on my wall over my desk for years. Because I was actually writing another book at the time. So this was just like a side project. I was like, I'm going to start writing this like fun little heist adventure fantasy. And yeah, I dabbled. I probably wrote that first chapter of Cello's Gate, the one that's actually in there. I probably wrote that chapter, I don't know, man, 10 times, 12 times, 12 different ways, testing out tense, testing out the voice, testing out everything, just until I landed on what I liked and what I wanted. But yeah, so I'm a huge nerd, right? So I grew up, my dad was also a huge nerd. He passed away last year. Thank you. But he basically raised us on Star Wars and the Three Stooges, and I grew up on that stuff. I love that stuff. I saw Firefly when I was in high school. I watched Treasure Planet as a child. Like these were like things that are part of my canon. They're part of my personal history. So this is heavily inspired by Firefly, Treasure Planet, Star Wars, Final Fantasy Tactics, and basically all the books I love. I wanted to write a book that was like, I'm just going to do everything I love, and I'm just going to mash it all together. And so that's what I did.
That's awesome. You give me hope, because my students always tease me. They're like, because I used to coach a lot, and I love sports and stuff. I miss coaching, but I love hanging with my son more. He's toddler, so I love being home. But like my friend will tease me at work, and my students will tease me like, what happens if your kid doesn't like sports? I'm like, I'm okay. They're like, well, what happens if your kid doesn't like X, Y, and Z? I'm like, I'm okay. They're like, what happens if your kid doesn't like fantasy or sci-fi? I was like, no son of mine.
No kid of mine. Yeah. That's amazing. I
feel like we're okay because of like what he's been watching. We got him on that. He's like on Super Dino Mini Force or whatever.
You can control
like
this.
Ninjago, right? He was into it. I was like, sweet. I was like, we're set,
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, but you give me hope though, because I'm hoping that he becomes a nerd like me. So I'm hoping.
I have no doubt. I have no doubts.
I appreciate that. We take it, my buddy and I. My wife laughs at us, but like she'll go out like do a girls' day, and my buddy goes, "Take your son to Comic Con." I'm like, yes. So we go like all over, and he like loves it. He'll go.
Oh yeah, then he's for sure gonna be a nerd. Like, how could he not? Like, those are formative memories, you know?
Yeah. Yep, that's awesome. I have to say, like, speaking of Firefly, like, I don't know if you do this, but I do this once a year. I will rewatch Firefly, and I will study a different character. So 2 years ago, I restudied Mal, and I literally like would watch an episode, and I'd be like, what is it that I love about this character so much? Last year, it was Jane, right? So now I'm like, I'm like deciding, is it Wash? Like, who am I going, Kaylee? Like, who am I going with next?
Wash
River?
is a great
like,
character to watch.
Yeah, I love him. I'm like so surprised. Like, Joss Whedon kind of sucks, right? But as a person,
right.
but as a writer, like, how do you come up with, each character, being...
Man, I love, everything I've seen from him, I love. So, it's like, what, give and take, but Mal is crazy because Mal's kind of, I had not rewatched it. I watched it when I was in high school, loved it, but I hadn't rewatched it, and I wrote this whole book, and then I was talking to my wife, and I was like, hey, we should watch Firefly. You haven't seen it. She'd never seen it. So we watched it all last year, and after the second episode, she looked at me and she said, did you take everything from this series? And I was like, I didn't know. I was like, I didn't remember. Like, I don't remember all of this being in here. But it's like my subconscious just like accidentally stole so many things from Firefly and put it in my book. But Mal is interesting because I remember him when I was in high school thinking he's very charming. He's very like that captain, very like smiley. He's got like that way about him. A swagger, but he's an angry guy, and he's also kind of an asshole. Like 100%. Sorry, excuse my language.
Well, PG-13, we're good.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, I mean, he's kind of an asshole. He's like, he's kind of a dick, like to a lot of the members of the crew, and it's wild because I don't remember that as a teenage boy watching it, but seeing it as an adult, he has so much more depth than I remember him having. Yeah.
Yep. Totally. I think I watched it with my friends literally like before we kind of all... I went to... I stayed in town for like our community college because I was like, I don't want to spend money on, university, not know what I wanted to do.
Same.
And all three of our friends decided to do the opposite. So, but like before we kind of like split off, we watched Firefly. So they had watched it. I had not seen it. So I remember like the last few days before they moved out of town, like we watched it and I was just like... But then I'm the same as like, I was like, oh, I remember him being like that, right? And then as an adult, I'm like, holy crap. And then once I started writing again, like a few years ago, like really seriously, I was like, damn, I was like, talk about a great, like you said, like a lot of depth to the character.
So much.
Jane too, right? And they're so different. I don't know. Even like Shepard, right? Like, I really like his character. All of them. I was very surprised.
It's sad that we didn't get more. Yeah. Honestly.
Yeah. People always say that, right? I'm in all these groups for like, in an alternate universe, which show would you pick to have another season? Everybody picks Firefly, and I totally agree with them. So
I've had a lot of people say that like Cello's Gate scratches that itch that Firefly left, and I'm like, that's wonderful that you just said that. It's not the same, obviously. It's it's a totally different world. It's like a mishmash. There's no magic in Firefly, but it's got a similar vibe, which was the goal because I just love that vibe so much. That found family, those rogues, like that's so.
I love the rogues, man.
100%.
Yeah. My friend, he goes, "Do you have to write every single story with a rogue?" And I'm like, "What do you mean?" I'm like, this is urban fantasy. He goes, this guy, he goes, this girl, or whatever, like, whatever it is. He goes, that's a rogue. And I'm like, damn, he's right. And he's like, you're such a paladin in real life, but you love the rogues. I'm like, I love redemption. I go, I love when somebody, like Mal, right, is like, yeah, I'm just going to take care of myself and my crew. And then it's like, damn it, I got to do the right thing. And I think that's what makes him, it's like really interesting to me, and the rest of his crew, I also like the loyalty with the Fountain family. Like that's like Guardians of the Galaxy after Firefly like scratched that itch for me. But I think I'm still like I'm always gonna be itchy, for round 2 of Firefly. So I think that that is awesome. That people can scratch that itch, with the
Yeah.
found family in your book.
Guardians of the
So I
Galaxy
think that's
totally has that same vibe. Like,
yeah,
obviously
yeah, yeah.
they're in much bigger stories also,
Yep.
inside the
Yeah,
Marvel
yeah, yeah.
universe, but they
Yep.
definitely have that like that banter, that the joking, the found family aspect. I mean, we grew up with that stuff. We all love it. Like it's
I mean,
like
it's Star Wars is what it
yeah,
is, right?
yeah,
Like in a
yeah.
nutshell, like you got a,
Han Solo, man.
walking carpet in Chewbacca. Yeah, Han Solo, like, yep. I mean, and like Leia likes to pretend, right? But she's more roguish than anybody. I actually saw
Yeah.
an interview with somebody and they were talking about that, and I was like, it totally changed my mindset of her because I've read so many of the books and comics, and I was like, dang, I was like, you're totally right. I was like, she's like has the high ground. She's like, oh yeah, we're gonna get this done. And she like goes, I'm like, dang, I like never really thought about it. My friend goes, man, did
So
you see her with Chewbacca or a Jabba the Hutt? I was like, that's fair.
right.
Like, it was
So
wild.
capable. She's so and Carrie
Yeah.
Fisher was like kind of roguish herself. Like she was
Yeah.
like
Yep. Yep. Yeah. 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 She definitely embodied it. That's like my friend. She's like, at one point, I was like, I was writing, right? And she was, and she's like was reading my stuff. It was like years ago. Thank God. And I'm sure now it's probably still like this, unfortunately, because I'm a guy. But I was like, yeah, can you read this? She goes, God, yeah. She goes, your female characters suck. And I was like, really? And this was probably like 12, 14 years ago. And I've been really working hard since then. But she's like,
you
who,
got it,
who are you trying
man.
to
You
write?
got it. It's so
Yeah, I was like, I'm trying to write Princess Leia. She goes, this is nothing like that character, Dan. So I'm glad she said that, though. I always love honest feedback, and definitely helped me improve. So I sent her a story a while back. She goes, oh my gosh, she goes, this is so much better from the female perspective than
that's awesome. Yeah,
in college or like right
I
after
have
college. Yeah.
two female perspectives in Cello's Gate.
Oh,
And so like
awesome.
that's super important to me. But my alpha reader is my wife, who is a woman, and she
Yeah. Yeah.
reads almost specifically for that, like for plot and structure, but she also reads for like the female perspective. And I never wanted to write those stereotypes. That whole joke about how like if women wrote men the way men write women, and it's like, like you can like I don't need to talk about anybody specific. But I've read some authors who were like,
I can think of a few. Yeah.
yeah, who were like writing about how the shirt rubs against the nipple of like
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
a teenage girl's breast, and I'm like,
Yeah. Yeah.
that's weird because when you write
Yeah.
about men, you don't talk about their balls jangling in their
Yeah. Yeah.
underwear. You don't
Exactly.
talk about the
Yep.
feel of the jeans against their,
Yep.
you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
penis.
Or how tight
But
their jeans are. Like, yeah.
yes, like what
Yep.
if you wrote the same way for both, then maybe it'd be excusable. But it's a little
Yeah.
weird. It's a little
Oh,
weird.
it's
Like,
definitely weird. Yep.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Yep.
yeah,
I've had some authors where I was like, I had to stop reading because I was like, when I was younger, right? I didn't really notice, right? But then as I have read more books
100%.
and stuff, yeah, like, and there are some, right, from like the 70s, 80s, 90s, even early 2000s. I'm like, I can't read this. Like, I'm like, I don't know what people were thinking. I think you sold a lot of books, so people, told you that you were really great, but maybe like didn't give you, the pointers that you should have gotten. But yeah,
Yeah.
it gets kind of crazy.
It's crazy. Like the book It with Stephen King
Yeah.
has
Yeah.
an orgy in it. I've never read it.
Yep.
I've heard, but that's wild of children with children,
Yeah. 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 It's pretty crazy.
and
Yep.
he's
I
Stephen
remember,
King.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I had a friend that they taught that book in the high school like ELA class, and I'm like, my friend brought that book back. I was like, how did he do that? And he goes, oh, we had to get an abridged version. I was like, okay, thank God. 'Cause I
Oh,
was
that
just
makes
like,
sense. That
yeah,
makes
I was
sense.
like, what? And then I'm from Michigan. I got here to New York, and I heard a few other people had taught it at the high school level. So I was like, oh, that makes more sense. But yeah, it is kind of wild, right? To think like what like 80s and 90s in particular, like the male authors like got away with.
Oh
Like
my
today
God,
you totally get canceled, and it's like you probably shouldn't be like
you
writing,
shouldn't
and
be writing. Yeah, I
yeah,
mean,
it's just like wild.
yeah.
Yep.
And Gunslinger. Have you read the
Oh,
Gunslinger?
yeah. I read book one. I bought the others, but yeah, I didn't notice too much until I got more into the series because I had actually read the graphic novels first.
Oh,
Um,
cool. Well,
yeah,
he
yeah,
rapes that woman with a shotgun,
yeah,
which
yeah, yeah, yeah,
is like haunting Adelaide, right? But like,
yeah, yeah,
I guess it's acceptable in some contexts. I don't know. I found it like I was like, what?
yeah,
And it was
yep,
so surreal. It's like this kind of like surreal scene. Like everything that in that book is really kind of wild and dreamlike.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I think that
Yep.
he kind of got away with it tonally because it was like
Yeah,
weird. It
man.
didn't feel like that, but if you read it, just like if you wrote down the action and the
Yeah,
just
yeah,
the
yeah.
sequence of events, it's like,
Yep.
what are you
Yeah,
thinking, bud?
he,
What
he
were
he
you?
definitely turned me off, like between like that and a few other things. Like, so that's my friend's like, "Oh, you going back to the series?" I was like, "Not really." I was like, "I just think he gets away with too much." I forgot about it actually, so that's like another one. I was just like, it's kind of wild to think about, but that's why
Yeah, man.
I'm
I
always
don't know
saying to my
how.
students, like, I was like, you kind of got to use your powers for good. I was like, some people use their
Right.
skills and just kind of do whatever and just kind of get away with stuff. So I think it's kind of crazy, but
You
I
know,
got
it
to argue
depends.
that.
Oh,
But
yeah. What were you saying? You got an argument?
no, I was arguing with somebody the other day about that. I was like, I think you should. I just want to mention, like, there are so many people that do the opposite. There's so many people that, like, are at a high level. Like Mark Lawrence is one of them, right? Who,
Hmm.
uses his platform and all these things. And I don't
Yeah.
know, like, there's one thing because my friend was like, "You're trying to say you can't do those things in stories or whatever," and I'm like, "No, I'm not saying that. I'm like, I'm just saying that, like." I said, I just think there's a difference. Like you were talking about the tone and stuff and the different stories. I go, some people I felt just kind of just did stuff to do it
Yeah.
or whatever. I don't know. My friend. He's like, you're not about censoring. I'm like, I'm not. I was like, really not, or banning books or whatever. But I said it's just at times it's like, was that really necessary? So him and I just kind of we got into a philosophical, like
Yeah, it's
author just
interesting because
about.
I mean you have to change with the times because being a popular author is determined by the audience, right? It's like being a
Yep.
comedian. It's like you are
Yeah.
only
Yeah.
funny if you make people laugh. If you don't make
Yeah.
people laugh,
Totally.
then you're not funny. And that's
Yep.
kind of what it is. Like it really depends on what you're aiming to do as an author. For me, I love to read because it's fun. I like to escape
Yeah.
into like
Totally.
I love
Yep.
grimdark, but I find grimdark fun, right? But
Yep.
I love action. I love adventure. I love jokes. My favorite series is Malazan Book of the Fallen. But one of
Oh
the best
man,
things
what a
about
great
that
series.
series is how funny it is. Like the
Yeah.
the Marines are so funny.
Yeah.
Bug and Tahol are so funny.
They're the
Like
best relationship.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, I love that series so much, but it's so real, it's so fun, it's easy to fall into. Like and that's what's important to me as a writer. Some people do want to write about really difficult things, right?
Yeah.
But you also have to know if you write about difficult things, it's not going to be for everybody.
Yeah. No, it's true.
And
Yep.
that's just
Well, that's like going back to Firefly, right? Like my friend and I, like like I had PTSD from a different like situation and stuff, than my friend who's a veteran. And I don't think the two of us and our situations. I was on a podcast with a veteran a while back, and some of the audience like got hold of me later, like, "You're trying to say that you're the same." I was like, "I'm not trying to say we're the same." I said we just both happen to have PTSD from a different situation.
PTSD isn't only a veteran
Yeah, 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 or vice versa, right?
diagnosis,
So
right?
yeah, yeah, yeah. So I was like, yeah, I had a situation, and but it was interesting where my friend and I we were talking, right, about the Dresden Files and about moments where Harry has some pretty crazy PTSD without knowing it, right? And we were
Mhm.
discussing that and how you would write that, like my type of PTSD like situation and how I was feeling because also symptoms are different for people, right? And then my friend
Yeah,
was talking about his. But it was really interesting to to kind of have that type of conversation. But like my
yeah,
friend's like, well, I want to write about like my experience, so he writes about it, in terms of science fiction and stuff. And then I have another friend, like she's a paramedic, right? So she writes like urban fantasy. But it's interesting, I think, because we were talking about Mal though. My friend is a veteran writer and a writer, and we were discussing that like Mal's depth is so deep because and my friend's like I feel like that, right? Like I'm kind of funny and whatever, nothing really matters, but then as soon as you f with somebody that I care about, my mal
yeah,
will come out, and I don't know, like through talking to him I just saw the character, because him and I talked about just people always talk like dudes don't talk about their emotions. Well, him and I talk about our emotions quite a bit, and it was interesting to see how my, perception of Mal has changed over the years based off of, what he was saying. And I don't know, it became a totally different character and it made me think of how to write, trauma or different characters and,
yeah.
what's affected them in different ways. So I thought was really, really interesting. But
Yeah, 100%.
yeah, I'm really anxious though to get to your book. I I love found family. It's like literally my favorite theme, trope, like whatever you want to call it. I love it. I'm here for it. So I'm really, really excited about that.
Yeah,
Can
man.
you did talk about though, where you were like plotting with different classes and things, but do you mind just kind of giving us like an overview of, what the audience can expect from like your cast of characters within the book?
Yeah, so I kind of wanted to make it. First thing that was important to me was like having a diverse cast, right? So
Yeah.
there's a lot of diversity. My world is queer normative as well, so like many characters are queer, unless it's part of the story or you see it. It's not really something that's talked about. We don't like, I don't identify all the characters right off the bat. It's just kind of something
Yeah,
you
yeah.
discover as you go. Um, and then, but I really wanted to make this crew real. The first draft of my book, everybody got along. They were this happy family. Everybody was in love. They loved each other. It was
Yeah,
like this, but then it was like it reads kind of stale. It's like
yeah, it's
they
boring.
love
Yeah,
each other too much. It's like,
yeah,
why? We don't see that. So like you're going to get banter, you're going to get jokes, you're going to get pranks, you're going to get emotional tension. The dynamics are going to get a little fuzzy. People have been in the crew longer than other people. So the characters in this book are they come from a wide range of backgrounds. Some of them are warrior types. Some of them are, we have a doctor, we have a pilot, they're all rogues in their own ways, but they're like kind of a different subclass. So it's like they're all like subclasses of rogue.
yeah.
But yeah, and they all come from different background. The captain of the crew comes from a very wealthy family, but a lot of the people come from very poor backgrounds. I mean, that's more reflective of my history because I didn't grow up with any money, so like I know how to write about that stuff. But yeah, a lot of crazy action, a lot of fight scenes, and yeah, I think that's what you should expect. Yeah. Banter, fun, dynamics that are a little, can be tense at times, but also very warm in other times, and lots of action, lots of tension.
Awesome. I had read a review of yours at some point for the book, and somebody was like, "It's like a D&D party in space."
Yeah.
Uh, in an Indiana Jones style adventure. I was like, that is a great, great tagline for someone to write about your book. I was like, one of these days, man, like that's something I want somebody to write something like that about one of
Yes.
my books.
Oh, that's like
that's really
the
cool.
biggest like dream come true is like all the reviews that have come out and all the people write the taglines for me. I don't have to do anything anymore.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
I just like, hey, go look at this review. If you want to know what my book is like, go listen to them because they'll tell you. And then you don't need to hear it from me,
Yeah, it's awesome. That's the best thing, I think. In terms of world building, what did you focus on the most for this book?
So I have a particular style of world building and exposition that I employ. And I kind of like build from the center, right? Center out. So what I like to focus on is what's pertinent to the story, what you need to know to make everything make sense, and what should I tease that'll come in later, right? So I like to like sprinkle things in that have later payoffs. So my focus was in order: lore, weapons, tech, geography and like topography and like settings, government, military, religion. Those are like the big things that I focused on. I have kilobytes, megabytes of documents on my computer that no one will ever see. Of like, I just spent days, hours, like coming up with stuff, because I wanted to make it feel real. And it's like, you can write your book without drawing your map, but if you had your map to look at, it's going to make your book so much easier to like figure out. Like it's going to be like you'll know where you are. So like then everybody will know where you are if you know where you are. If that makes sense. So yeah, I drew my own map.
Does. Yeah. Incarnate, guys. I use Incarnate all the time. I don't even like run D&D games anymore, but I still use Incarnate for my own self or for different rooms of stuff. I
Yeah.
had to do I used Adobe Express just to AI like little icons just for myself.
Yeah.
And then I had like a chart because I got like 12 guys in my unit, right? Or my
Right.
squad, which I didn't know till I had written 10 characters. So I'm like, damn it. So I had to figure out, I know, right? My friend, I have two veterans that are helping me to make sure that my Marine veteran monster hunter is actually a Marine veteran monster hunter.
That's cool. That's
Yeah, but
awesome.
like I had to like create icons. I had to do little maps. I'm like, okay, who's got who's six? I'm like, who's here? I'm like, it was just wild. I was like, I
And the
need
lingo.
visual.
The lingo
Yeah,
is so
yeah, yeah.
important. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, it was just wild. But like to know who's with who, with building and stuff. I almost ran it like a D&D campaign now for my fifth draft, like to add people and to know who's who. I'm adding like fight scenes and different things, and I really need to know like who's where and stuff, and at
Right.
what time. So it's like I agree. I don't know. I incarnate and I just do that on Adobe Express and Canva. I'm not in AI for book covers or anything, but
Yeah.
I just do it for myself just because like ideas. I being an illustrator originally, like seeing something cool like your cover gives me a lot of cool ideas. I
Yeah.
like to put other people's covers too, just so I can like look at them and get really good ideas. But that sounds amazing. I like how you did that breakdown too. I think I'm gonna kind of go back and maybe see. Well, I got a Mech Marine series that I got book one pretty well started. So, but I was like kind of. I didn't really approach it in the way that you just said, and I'm not as good at writing sci-fi. So I'm gonna come back to this. This is like my notes too, right? It's like learning from other people. So I think
Right.
I'm
That's
gonna try
cool.
and redo it. Like redo the world building and kind of start from scratch.
Yeah, it's
But
kind
I
of
think
the
that's a really
opposite
good thing.
of I think so when you write a scene, this is my developmental editor told me. When you write a scene, you start from the outside in. So you give the big and then the small uh fine details because first you got to tell us like where you are and then what's immediately around you. But with world building for me, there was a big like it's important. What do you need to know? Because I never wanted to be like an info dump writer.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
never wanted you to get bogged down by exposition. And world building to me feels like it should be intuitive. Like
yeah,
you've
yeah.
been living in this world this whole time, but you did not need to know how the government of this country like runs until you get to that country, till you step foot in that soil. So like I like to write that way, but I'm a geek when it comes to lore. Man, I have so much lore. I wrote like enough stuff to form several prequels to this
That's
series.
awesome. That's amazing. That's super cool. Well, I just want to go back to though to to what you mentioned, in terms of like representation, because
Yeah.
I was talking about that with some a while back. My best friend and I, we have discussed this with Malazan a lot, where when you first come into, I would say more equal representation in Malazan, we were like, oh, like that's kind of cool. Like was that really what we just thought it was? Like just natural and like no big deal? And especially when Erickson wrote Gardens of the Moon, I think that was really like really
And
cool
so long
personally because
ago.
yeah, it was so long ago, but like and it was just so like you just never really noticed. I was talking to some people, my friend and I were after that, and they're like, "Oh, they're like I didn't really notice." I'm like,
Yeah, I think it's
"Yeah, I'm like
incredible. Tattersail is like a plus sized woman who's like one of the
yep,
most powerful people in book one.
yeah,
Like
yep,
incredible
yep,
writing and like a revolutionary. He did that way
agreed."
before it was expected by readers.
That's what I think, yeah. And like there are different, relationships and stuff, and you're just
Yeah,
like it's so natural. And I the more I thought about it, I was like, it's so true because we just assume, and I've talked about this with people, in terms of seminars or just different things, right? Or they're like, we started talking here, then they were talking separate, and I said to somebody who mentioned to me, they're like, well, you're assuming, right, that you would take I'm a history teacher, so they're like, you're assuming that we take your societal norms here and that they're the same societal norms. And ever since I thought about it, I was like, damn, I was like, you're totally right. But I was like, it's not just like representation for women, LGBTQ, different races, species, or whatever. I was like, it would probably be a lot of different things. So I've started to tweak a lot,
yeah. When you write
different
secondary world
activities.
fantasy, you don't have to
Yep.
base it on our society. You
Yep.
don't have to do that. Like, not that like I'm not trying to minimize like anything, but like I didn't want to write like a world that was racist. I didn't want
Yeah. Yeah.
racism. So I was like, I'm just not gonna make it racist. They won't be racist.
Yeah.
There's a lot of classism because that's also like, that's a big part of my like, ideology. But like, I didn't want to create another racist world. Like we don't need it. Yeah. We got plenty going on right here.
Yep. No, yeah. And I'm totally blanking on who it was. It was like Wheel of Time, right? Like you got a bunch of different races of people, whatever you want to say, right? Or cultures in one country. But like, it's not that I don't like you because of your race or ethnicity. It's I don't like you because you're from this country. And you don't like me because I'm from this country or city, state, or kingdom.
Right, it's like nationalism, kind of.
Yeah. And I just felt like Robert Jordan did that really well, in particular. And
well, you have to, especially in like war-torn areas, like when you're writing about these, in this world where everybody's at war all the time, there are going to be those tensions. There are going to be prejudice. Prejudice exists, like you can't take that out of it, but like you can alter it. You can change it. You can make it whatever you want.
Yeah. H.M. Long, like Hannah did this so well in her first book. Oh my gosh, it was so good. And like the you can like literally feel that people are like the tension because of these different groups of the nations where they're from. I've never felt like I'm like, holy crap, I really don't like that country or something. Like heard the nationalism was so well. But then you get, then the main character is kind of from like this Nordic country and then goes and talks to another group and then they help her and you kind of get to know them and you're just like, man, it really breaks down a lot of barriers. And I don't know, she had some just like amazing themes. I've rarely seen people do it that well compared to like Erickson or Jordan, but like she knocked it out of the park. It was really cool.
Man, Erickson out here making everybody feel like they're not a good writer. That's
seriously. He writes like 10 books in one book, and you're like, all of it's better than what I do. This is wild.
So sad.
I know we're winding down on time a little bit, but I want to just ask you real fast because, and you mentioned your wife, in advertising and her job and stuff, helping you out. Now, can you tell us a little bit about your website and how you set up your store? Because your website is I see a lot of book websites. It's one of the nicest ones I've seen. So did your wife help you in terms of like...
No, I'm a website designer by trade.
Oh, dude. So, all right. We got to talk after I get done.
Because... for sure. 100%. I'm a website designer by trade. Yeah. So I build websites. I also design logos. I did the graphic design on my own book cover. So I did the typography and stuff. Because I do that as a profession. I'm also a freelance writer, so I'm a freelance writer and freelance graphic designer and web designer.
So glad I asked you then.
Yeah, I designed my own thing, my own website, and then put a lot of time into it, obviously. And then I got a shop up through Shopify.
Oh, nice.
So I now have signed copies available. That's a later edition. That wasn't... When you probably bought it, that wasn't available yet.
Gotcha. Okay.
But I did get so I do have a Shopify link on it's like books and merch. You can go there. You can see like the Shopify, which I also designed. And then I have a TikTok shop. So I sell through there as well. So yeah, I use WordPress. I use a theme called Divi. It's like a builder. I'm not a coder. But I do know, I know a little bit. I can do some CSS and some HTML when I need to. But I'm mostly, I'm a visual guy, So for me, it was like, I really wanted to have a dope author website. Not that many people go to it. It's not like it is getting a lot of traffic now because I'm running traffic to it. But it's not like, I'm not, blowing up right now with, traffic to my homepage on Google. But because you only find me if you search my name, if anybody's curious, go check out my website. And
it's in the description in the interview below. So anywhere you're watching or listening, Maurice's links, particularly his website, will be right after just a short little description. So all his links will be right there. So please check that out and then hire him to help you out because I know I need it
for real.
But it was really, really cool. So I just wanted to mention that. I was just curious.
I saw that question. I saw you sent me the questions beforehand. I saw that question. Yeah. I was like, I wonder why he's asking that. But now I know.
I just like to point it out because I call this a journeyman's podcast. So people, who like you and me, right? Who maybe are about to launch, have just launched book 1, 2, or 3, and people just tend to need help. So I like to point out, it's the teacher in me. I like to point out really starting people when I have a minute because it's hard to find sometimes because some people you just go right and you're trying to find authors and not every author has a great website and it doesn't look good. And being a I don't know, probably at one point I probably could have done graphic design, right? If I had finished up the classes.
Well, as an illustrator, you'd have had a natural inclination for it, I'm sure.
Yeah, it bugs me when I go to someone's site and it's like horrible.
Same, man, same. Because it's not that hard anymore with Squarespace and all this stuff available. It's like so much easier to build a good site, and it's the bare minimum. It's the stuff that you need to make it seem like you're legitimate. It goes a long way. Having an author website goes a long way. Yeah.
Yep. And you want to look professional. So like your cover, your blurb, and your website personally. I saw your advertisement on Facebook. Those kind of things I just want to point out. So it is working. It is finding your audience. So
good.
I always like to point that out to people because you never know, right? So so I think that was really cool. But I just wanted to point that out because I think it was really well done. I love the colors and just how everything was set up. So
thank you.
It was really, really cool.
I love the colors so much. It is the color scheme in my living room.
Oh, that's awesome. Super cool.
Total accident. I don't know how that happened, but it's like it is.
That's hilarious. Well, I want to ask this last question before we wrap up here because I'm really interested to see what you have to say. So if you could join any crew from any sci-fi or fantasy, that's fine. Which would it be and why? Like, who would be your crew?
Firefly.
Who do you feel you'd meld with?
Without a doubt. Just because they're rowdy. There's lots of banter. Everybody's funny, for sure. But if I had to pick a second, and I did think about this because I was like, who would I pick? There's so many. There's so many crews. But I would for sure pick the Howlers. From Red Rising. I have a Howler cup.
Oh, that's super cool.
Wakey, wakey, goblin. But I love the Howlers. I'm a huge Red Rising fan. So I'd love to be a part of Severo's crew,
That's awesome. That's
like that
cool.
inner circle. They're all weird and they stink and they're weird, but they're lovable, they're sweet, like there's something there. There's something there for sure.
I totally agree. They're really the rogues, I think, is the cool part.
Of course. That's who we identify with.
My friend asked me this. I told him I was going to send you this question. He asked me. I was like, honestly, original Stargate SG-1.
Wow.
I think that would be.
That'd be a choice. Yeah. I never watched Stargate, but my dad watched it a lot when I was growing up. So.
Oh man, dude, I started rewatching it like when my son was born, and we couldn't really go anywhere. So I was like, oh, it's free on Hulu, and I started rewatching it. So I highly recommend it.
Cool.
Yeah, and I go back, and there's just so many good written episodes. There's so many things. I'm like, I thought I had forgotten them or melded them or something, but nope, they're just there, and there are just so many good writing points in terms of science fiction in particular and fantasy. But 100%. It was really cool. I actually want to go back to it like really soon after I'm done with this novella.
You should.
See how it is.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's really cool. I like both those answers. My best friend will be happy to hear that because I'm pretty sure he finished the series. So Severo's still his favorite as far as I know the last couple weeks. So I'll have to let him know later today or this weekend for book club.
Awesome.
I know we're wrapping up, but I want to make sure, Maurice, you got some time, to tell us, if you have any news, updates, current projects, anything like that you can share with us.
So I have a few things that I'd love to talk about. I have a huge announcement coming in early July. That's all I can say. I
love surprises. So
yeah, it's a surprise. There will be updates on several things. The hardback edition of Cello's Gate, character art, new merch, and maybe a special edition that's in the works.
Cool.
So that'll be coming. The audiobook is currently in the works. I actually have a meeting with my voice coach on the 8th, and then it's off to the races. So as soon as I have that meeting, I'm just going to be rolling with it. So I'm hoping that it'll come out between 2 to 3 months from now. So that's the goal. Okay. Fingers crossed. Book 2 is coming along nicely. I'm about halfway through Act 1. Things are crazy. I try to give updates on Instagram and stuff, Instagram stories. So if you don't follow me there, you should. I also just did a price drop yesterday on all of my books. So everything is now discounted from the original price. and I offer signed editions on my website and on the TikTok shop.
Oh, awesome.
So that's it.
Awesome.
Those are the announcements.
I love people like, oh, that's it. That's like 18 things compared
Yeah.
to.
I'm sorry.
No, it's just
all.
funny. Like, I always like to laugh because like indie people, I'm like, somebody came out here, they go, oh, my audiobook's coming out, book 2's coming out, and then I have a short story. And they're like, I guess there's not a lot this year. I'm like, dude, that's like 3 years of traditional
That's so
work.
much stuff. Yeah. Right.
I was like, holy moly. Like, they had cover reveals and stuff. They're like, yeah, it's not a lot. I was like, that's a ton of stuff. So I just like to point out, we do a lot of work. Like, everybody does nowadays,
Right.
like, no matter who you are. But everybody's
It's
working
constant
really
hustle,
hard,
man.
right? So,
It's hustle grind.
Yep.
That's what we're in. That's the culture.
Yep.
That's the life of an indie author for sure.
yeah. Yeah. People ask me, like, what are you doing? I was like, I'm going home, working my podcast, trying to get my work done this week so I could then, wrap up writing and stuff. I was like, and then they're like, what are you doing? I was like, I'm finishing novella 2 or writing something else while I'm waiting for feedback, It's just can't stop, won't stop. Well, thank you so much, Maurice. This has been awesome. I really, really appreciate you coming on. I'm really excited to read the book. I'm trying to sprinkle some. I'm like a year behind, so I'm trying to.
Honestly, I totally get it.
In between, so I'm hoping that I can use your book, Chose Gate, as like kind of one of my palate cleansers for my current 2025 reading list. I've been doing that with some people that I found recently, and it's just no offense to anybody that's on my list, but sometimes I'm a very flavorful like reader, so sometimes I just need to mix it up. So
yeah,
I have
100%. You need to vary it up, and like I hope you love it. I hope you really enjoy it.
I'm sure I will. I love all the things that it seems like it is, so I'm sure I'll enjoy it. So I feel like now I know what my it's like wine or something, right, or whatever. I know my taste, so I feel like it's right up my alley.
For sure.
Well, if you need anything, my friend, or you want me to post anything, like just send it to me, email me, get a hold of me on Instagram. I do have a podcast group on Facebook if you're on there, or if you want to just send me stuff, I can post stuff whenever. So I got a Discord if you want to join that. It's for authors and readers and content creators and stuff. But yeah, if there's anything else we can do to help you out in any way, just let me know, and we'll get it done for you. So
heck yeah, man. Heck yeah, we'll definitely be in touch. Tag me as soon as this is like, let me know when this is going up and stuff. And yeah, we'll be in touch. We're friends. Now we know each other. So like,
yeah. I'll talk to you. Yeah, I'm excited actually to chat with you about some other stuff offline and stuff. So I'll hit you up on Instagram or something like that. So awesome. Well, thank you so much, Maurice. I will be hitting you up later on today, let you know your release date and everything like that, and we'll get everything situated for you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Daniel. You have a good one. All right.
You too. I'll see you later.
All right. Bye.
Bye.